2020 has been a difficult time for all of us, and with the environment currently, as far as election goes, it has been incredibly difficult to get a proper perspective from any of the candidates. So what I try to do is get an actual personal perspective of each candidate. And today I have with me Michael Payma. He's running for 471st District of Collin County and District Court. And we're going to make this more entertaining than your usual election conversations. And we're going to start off with, when did you ever make it to Plano?
Well, Sean, let me thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I moved to Plano back in 1980. So I'm celebrating my 40th year of being a Plano resident.
Well, that's much longer than I have even been born in that time period. Did you go high school in?
Well, if you're trying to make me feel good, you did not. But no, I went to high school in Denton. And then once I graduated from high school in Denton, I moved with my family to Plano and started going to school in the Dallas area.
In Dallas area. What interested you in Collin County? Why, out of all the counties out there, would?
Well, when we first decided to move from Denton, we looked at a lot of houses in Dallas County. But we looked at houses in Plano, and we just love the environment. I think in Plano encompasses everything that families look for. And I've seen Plano grow from a very small city in the past 40 years to a beautiful, beautiful city that I'm proud to raise my family. And it's a city where I hope to raise, my family will raise their families.
So it would be accurate to say that you're not a big Frisco fan.
Frisco's good. I go to Frisco occasionally, but overall, Plano is where I've lived, and the entire Collin County has been my home.
It has grown so much that Frisco, Plano, and Prosper even at this point, and most of the other cities has become pretty much the one. And 90% of the time we're spending our times in one of these cities, and we don't even know it.
Yeah, we don't even know we crossed the line.
Yeah,
You're
we
right.
crossed the lines.
Right.
But back in the day when the llamas were hanging out and everything else, you would know when the roads end. So I kind of.
Just to add on what you just said, I always tell my kids that I used to play soccer where Whole Food is now in the corner of Park and Preston. It used to be a cornfield. So I used to play soccer back in the early 80s in that spot where it was a cornfield.
So soccer is your favorite sport?
Soccer is the favorite sport for me to play. I love playing soccer. I've been a big soccer fan all my life because I grew up in England first and then moved to the United States. But my favorite sport to watch is basketball, and my daughter is the one who brought me to basketball because she's the biggest math fan you will ever find. And then after basketball, I would say football, and go Cowboys.
So Cowboys favorite fan, and Mavericks is your NBA, and they didn't do that. I mean, they did great. They made it to playoffs, but they didn't close out Clifford. It's LA Clippers. Yeah, I haven't watched it.
Look, being a fan doesn't mean your team's got to win every time. So as long as they give it 100% on the field, I support them.
Isn't that go with elections too? How does that work with someone gets to win at the day's end?
Yeah, every election, somebody wins and somebody loses. But I think what it boils down to is, did you do everything else? Did you leave anything on the table? And I'm hoping that I won't. I'm working hard every day to get my message out and get people to know me and get to know my qualifications and background. And I think, I firmly believe that if they understood who I am and they understood my qualifications and how it serves Collin County judicial bench, I think definitely I will be the right candidate because I have the right experience for the right job.
Right experience for the right job. How long have you been practicing?
Well, come this November 4th, it will be 26 years, and I have litigated over 700 cases, and I've even done criminal defense work. So I've got a wide variety of experience in the legal system, and I've lost count of how many cases I've actually tried, but over 700 cases that I've litigated in Dallas County, Collin County, Tarrant County, Denton County, even as far south as Houston, Odessa. I mean, you name it, I've been there. So I've seen a lot, and I've done a lot.
How many cups of coffee would you say that is throughout your career?
Oh, God. But one thing about...
How many cups do you go during the day? Let me just ask.
In fact, I drink 1 cup in the morning, and usually when I go to the office, I get half a cup, which I usually don't finish. With the stress that I have, I don't need any more coffee. But I do drink that 1 cup of coffee religiously every morning. So yes, 1 cup.
uh, hobbies as far as how do you relieve stress with having so much? Being a trial attorney, being a attorney, it's stressful. What is your stress reliever?
Reading. I love reading books, and I read books from a variety of things, whether from political books, whether it's from just an ordinary novel. But I'm a big reader. I love reading, and I read a lot during the day as an attorney. But still, the best thing to release stress for me is reading a book.
Are you a digital person, 2 monitors, or
Well, 2 monitors is a must for.
or still a hard book copy?
Well, no, I mean, I do have 2 monitors because I think just being a litigator, you always got to be comparing things, looking at case files and so forth. But I have not bought an ebook because I still love the feel of the book in my hand, even though they're heavy. I still love holding a book and reading a book because to me, it still gives me the sense that I'm reading a book and not simply looking at something on the internet. So personally, I'm still a book guy.
So, what would you say your favorite book is?
Well, it's hard to tell because most of the books that I read, 80 to 90% of the books I read are about either historic events or political events. And I'm one of those guys that, believe it or not, I read 2 books at the same time, which means if I'm reading something about a historic event, I always have another book, maybe from the other side, that deals with the same event. And I always love to read them, compare them. And I think by doing that comparison, you are getting closer to what the truth was in the historic sense. And I think that's the same concept that I'll bring to the bench. I will not just listen to one side. I think you need to fully listen to both sides and then be able to figure out what the truth is.
When you're on the bench, what would you say makes you impartial or fair? Because a lot of people run on that count that, hey, I'm going to be fair and impartial. But what makes you and differentiates you from that? Because you just talked about comparing two different things at the same time.
I don't think there's a special formula to being an impartial judge. I think what makes you impartial is having the ability, the patience, and the compassion to listen to both sides, understand both sides, and not make a decision until you've heard it all. Unfortunately, these days you see too many times where a judge listens to the first 5 minutes of the arguments and already has made up their mind. No matter what you do, you cannot change their mind. And I think the best judges that I've seen are the ones who show up to court prepared, who have read the paperwork beforehand, and instead of forcing the attorney to retell and waste the court's time of reciting what was written, being able to be prepared and ask the right questions. And if you do that, I think you get better results and you can understand each side's position better and make a fair ruling. That's really what fairness is about. Not my personal beliefs, not what I believe should be right or wrong, but what the law tells me is the right thing and the wrong thing.
Being a attorney and trial attorney for almost 26 years, correct?
Yes.
You have represented corporations, individuals on criminal civil side, and there's a huge difference between the criminal and civil, but you're running for a civil bench, correct?
Correct.
I want to get to a point where the environment these days has become incredibly difficult, and you have, as you said, two sides, and everyone is arguing about their perspectives. And a lot of the younger generations feel like their side is not being heard, and they're not going out and getting involved or voting. What message do you have for them or encourage them that you would possibly hear their side, or you can get they should be out there voting? Why?
Well, that's a great question, Sean. And I think if you go back and look back at the past 40, 45 years in America, part of the problem that we're facing today is because the youth of 40 years ago did not participate, did not get into the system. Had they gotten into the system 40 years ago by participating, running for offices, and being part of the system, then I think our entire political map would have changed. Because those people with those great ideas 40 years ago would be people like me who are now able to, not just have the experience, but also the mentality and the ideology that we can move this country forward. The worst thing you can do is just not to participate and leave it to others to decide for you. Because when others decide, they're going to dictate their opinions on you because they'll win elections. So if you're passionate about what happens to your society, what happens to your community, and what happens to your state and country, the only way to do it is to participate in the process, because without your voice, you will not be heard. So I encourage the young people of this country, the 18-year-olds, the 19-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, go out there and vote. And you know, we have a lot of time, we have a lot of abilities to do research on our candidates. So don't just sit there, don't listen to what somebody else tells you, research and pick the right candidate that's closer to your point of view.
Well, going into depth of what you just mentioned, a lot of people believe that it's already a made system. It's a two-party system. Someone, no matter who goes in there, they're going to have to deal with it. And I don't like to talk politics, and I don't want to make this a political discussion, because I don't believe that it's politics. I believe it's government, and government is the one that's eventually one person is going to win, and they have to make decisions, make laws, and one person has to decide on those laws, which will become the judicial branch. Eventually, what would you tell those people that are undecided or believe that their vote wouldn't make a difference?
Well, every vote makes a difference, because ultimately at the end of the day, we count every vote, and the person with most amount of vote wins. But the problem is most people may not quite understand how the system works. You elect judges, you should elect judges that are qualified, not just because someone looks better, not because somebody has an R or a D next to their name. Ultimately, with respect to judges, you have to make sure you pick judges that are qualified, understand the law, and can perform best on the bench. Now, going back to the political aspect of it, as a judicial candidate, I'm limited on what I can say. I cannot get involved in politics. But what I can tell you is, if everybody participates, there are different levels that you can have safeguards, like judges. If the judges make the wrong decision, there's a court of appeals. So make sure you pick the right people to be in the Court of Appeals. The same way, if you don't like what the president does, you have Congress, you have the third branch, the judicial branch, that you can elect the right people to be a safeguard against the others. So whether your candidate for president wins or lose, remember there's other branches that need your attention. I'm running for a bench because I think I'm qualified. I think I will make the right decisions. I think I will serve the public. And again, impartiality is not just about being fair, because we all want to be fair. But the problem is, you've got to have somebody who understands the law and applies the law fairly and equally to every citizen.
It's going to be the juice of this question is, every single person out there, when they think about election, they think about federal election. Yet they believe that if they are voting federal, there's no requirement to vote local. Why, or what is it that you tell those fans out there, or those people out there, it's important for you to vote in your local elections? It's important for you to vote in local elections as much as it's important to federal elections.
Well, think about this. I'm not saying that the presidential election or the election on the U.S. Senate is not as important. What I'm saying, though, is what local officials, your local elected officials, do every day affects your life every day, because those are the ones who decide about what happens at your local schools. Those are the ones who decide what happens with budget for your schools and so forth. And judges decide on issues that are happening in your community. Whereas somebody in Washington, D.C. at some federal bench is making a decision about something that happens in Oregon, or happens in New York, or it happens in Georgia. But the decision that I will be making will be issues that directly impact Collin County. And if you don't get the right decision at local level, then the federal election will have far less impact on your daily life.
How does it work when you go to the election booth on the day of election? By the way, I know the answer to this, but I want you to discuss it. The registration, election, and booth time.
Well, the system that we have in Texas is like this. You have to register to vote. And if you've missed the last 4 or 5 cycles of elections, the Secretary of State can take your name off the poll, which means even though you've registered, you may not be on the roll. So it's important for you to go to Secretary of State's website, make sure your registration is up to date. If it's not, activate it. If your address has changed, make sure that you update the activation. I think the deadline to register to vote for November is October the 5th. And then you'll get a little card, and you got to take that card with your driver's license and vote. Early election, because of the COVID situation that the entire country is going under, early elections has been extended. So early election starts on October 13th and runs through October 30th. So you have basically a 2-week window to go and vote where there are no lines, and you can get in and get out quickly with far less people that's going to be around you. So I ask everybody to vote early. Go out there and vote early, and hopefully you will cast a vote for me, Michael Payma, for the 471st District Court.
Cast the vote for you, but I want you to talk about booth time, because a lot of people, booth time is an incredible, difficult time for them to understand where they're going with it. And I actually had my friends and family members, when they went to vote, they kind of got confused. Well, I just voted, yeah, but I didn't see his name on there, or I didn't see what was going on.
Well, usually the presidential election is the longest, has the longest ballot. So when you go to vote, you register, you go in there, and they give you a little thing that you insert into the machine, and then it's multiple pages. It's not just one page. So you start with the presidential election, work your way down to the federal level, and then you work your down to state, and then you work your way down to local. So make sure you push that button that says next page, and the example that I use, if you went through the entire ballot, it will probably take you less than 3 minutes. Now think about when you go and stand in line to get a cup of coffee at Starbucks. It probably takes you longer to get a coffee at Starbucks than it does to vote your entire ballot. So I ask you to go and vote your entire ballot all the way from the top to the bottom, because the bottom people are the ones who affect your life on a daily basis, and probably more than the people at the top.
I have a question that is going to be difficult for you to answer, and I want you to take your time with that.
Sure.
I'm not wearing a tie, and you're wearing a tie. Bow tie, tie, or no tie?
Well, I'm a tie guy, and the reason is because I started boarding school back in England from the age of 11. So I'm used to wearing a tie since I was 11 years old, and that's a long time ago. Now, the only unusual thing about this COVID period for my office has been that I get to wear just a regular shirt and a jean and go to the office. But
that's your Zoom outfit.
Well, the Zoom outfit, yes. But I'm mostly a tie guy. I gotta say, I got more ties. I may have 1 or 2 bow ties, and I usually wear those for.
Well, I stopped wearing ties ever since that there's not much of an appearance in court.
Correct.
We used to be in court every day, but now that the court is gone, I mean, every time you come to a court, you have to have your jacket on.
But to answer your question, I'm a tie guy. I probably have 2 or 3 bow ties, which I usually wear for formal.
Well, thank you so much for coming today.
Well, thank you, Sean.
Is there any question? I mean, I had you under the gun the entire time. Any questions you want to ask me?
All right, Sean, let me ask you this. As a lawyer who's been practicing successfully for so many years in Collin County, what do you look in when you're trying to choose or vote for a judge?
I vote for judges based on balls and strikes. I want the judge to act as an umpire in a baseball game and say, balls and strikes, you're out or you're correct. Because 90% of the time what happens is we file our documents and we file our motions. A motion is a document that you file for the judge to you're asking the judge to rule or the court to rule on the decision that you want from them. And the judges sit on it for a really long time and they don't do the job. And that prolongs the case. That creates an expensive litigation cost into the entire case. And I want candidates that are going to be fair, and they're not going to put their personal opinions above the actual facts and the laws, and they can do their research. There has been several times that we filed our motions and the judge, before we even get in, has made their decision, yet they haven't heard. And I sometimes don't want to bash any judges, but we know that they haven't even read the motion because it was specific and the law is clear as to some of the cases. And what it does, and I'm sorry I take you longer on this, but what it does is it makes it really expensive to litigate for the client, rather than I make the money, but the client loses the money.
I agree with you, and that's why it goes on back to experience. I think why experience, having the right experience is so important, is because as a judge or as an attorney who's practiced law in civil law for the past 26 years, I don't think there's a motion, like I said, that I haven't seen. We stay updated with the case law, but it's just natural. You cannot tell me that somebody in a specialized fields like medicine or law can have as much experience and exposure to what's out there after 5, 6, 7 years. So experience does matter, because when you elect experienced people, you're electing people who've been there, who've done that, and they're not going to get intimidated by lawyers who may know more than they do. Because after a certain level, I know as much as the next guy. So I'm able to make the decision because I know what's going on and I understand the law and I've been there. So I think I'm the right person for that bench.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, John. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a